My name is Kyle. I am a Minnesota Timberwolves fan who is born and raised in Sacramento. Quite the controversy, right? So, a little bit of background on how I became a Timberwolves fan. I started playing basketball myself as a youth in the early 90s. At the time, I had a grandmother on my mom's side who was a Minnesota native and was working in the Twin Cities. The Timberwolves were an expansion team at that point, so there was a lot of excitement out there. Didn't have any team commitment yet. I didn't necessarily know a whole lot, but my grandmother knew that I liked basketball, so she had started sending me a little bit of Timberwolves merch from kind of the expansion era. And so from them, I'm just like, hey, this is a pretty cool logo. My grandma sent it, so this is going to be my team. At the time, the Timberwolves were not very good. Those were like the Tom Gugliotta, Doug West days. And we didn't have anything really noteworthy happen until Isaiah Ryder won the dunk contest in 94. And then the next year, obviously, we draft Kevin Garnett, which was pretty cool because he was a highly touted prospect. And then following year, obviously, Stephon Marbury. Those teams coincided with the Kings being really good. So my family always had season tickets, so I'd go to a ton of Kings games as well. So I got to see a lot of those games, and those were great matchups. I mean, that's when Chris Webber was at his prime, and him and Duncan were really the only two who could hang with Garnett at the time. So great matchups, always very competitive. Obviously, I'm wearing the throwback Garnett. I got the Garnett from the All-Star game the year he won MVP, other Garnett. So I do have a ton of Wolves merch, and obviously I'm kind of tied to the older teams just because those were my more formative years. Also, those teams were really good. I won't stop being a Wolves fan at this point. It's been, 30 years, so I'm gonna keep it going, and we'll see what Anthony Edwards has in store for us, hopefully for the next couple of years, and go Wolves.
There's your winner right there, folks. Welcome to the show. Jesse Larson and Jordan Wright here, joined this morning by Kyle Rhodes, avid Minnesota Timberwolves fan and winner of the $100. Kyle, thanks for coming on. How does it feel to wake up a winner this morning?
Feels fantastic.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sending in that video. I'm going to ask you a little bit about your fandom as a Timberwolves fan. You did get into it a little bit more in depth with me, but there was only so much you could put in that 2-minute time limit I gave you. What would you say was your favorite moment all time as a Minnesota Timberwolves fan?
Probably going to some of the playoff games at the old Arco Arena. Just because at that time, man, Arco would be so loud and deafening, and those old Kings fans were crazy. And at the time, the Kings and the Timberwolves were very evenly matched, so always competitive series, always a lot of back and forth between Garnett and Webber, and just really good times. I mean, I was a teenager at the time, so, I was kind of still in my formative years, you could say, but just great times out there. And from about 99 to about 03, the Kings and Timberwolves had quite a few playoff matchups.
So I know you also talked to me a little bit about the state of the Timberwolves today. Do you feel like the team is headed in the right direction as they sit right now?
To be quite frank, I think we're kind of in a holding pattern where we're just simply kind of treading water. I'm not sure that Chris Finch is long-term the right answer at coach for us, and I'm not sure that the current roster construction is right for us. I do think that we probably need to move on from Cat. The Rudy Gobert trade really kind of nuked our future as it relates to the draft picks, and at some point we're going to have to recoup those. Obviously, Cat's going to have a pretty sizable market, and you hate to see a talent like that go. But he just doesn't have that killer instinct that someone like Anthony Edwards does. He's oftentimes very lackadaisical on defense. It's not uncommon for him to throw kind of a half-hearted pass late in games, kind of to no one. And he kind of goes through spurts where he's, I would say, mentally checked out. So I'm not sure that Cat is the right superstar to build around. I think Ant is, and I'm not sure that Chris Finch is the right man for the job going forward. In any event, we are doing okay this year. I see us maybe as a play-in team, probably a one and done. I just don't think we'll have what it takes to beat someone like the Grizzlies, like the Warriors, if we end up in a series with them.
What do you think about hanging on to some of these veterans like Rudy Gobert and D'Angelo Russell going forward?
We're going to have to hold on to some of them. And for outsiders looking in, they're probably not super familiar with our roster construction. But veterans like Torian Prince and Kyle Anderson have been crucial for us. And we're absolutely going to need some of those guys because the Anthony Edwards, the Jaden McDaniels, they're still prone to some of those jitters and big moments, and they're still prone to mistakes. And I think the construction of our team that we would need to be a mix of some of the youth and the veterans. Gobert, we probably can't move just because how much we've invested in him. And actually, rules would prohibit us, I believe, from moving him until after the season. So certainly, we're going to have to keep some of those veterans. And I think we need some of those veterans. Torian Prince oftentimes is kind of our on-floor leader. He's not a guy that a lot of people know a ton about. He's kind of just a role player, but he's been in the league for quite a few years, and he is a voice of reason on the court oftentimes. So
Just going back real quick to kind of the legacy of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Where do you see Kevin Garnett as an all-timer? I don't think a lot of people have him in top 10, probably top 20 at the very least, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I mean, Tim Duncan is clearly the best power forward ever. I think that is without a debate.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into that next tier of guys, I mean, you think about someone like Dirk, who, because he won a championship with his home team, and I think his legacy with the Mavericks is so good, you probably put Dirk ahead of KG all time as far as power forwards are concerned. But certainly, I think he's in that next group. He all time, he's absolutely not a top 10 player. Top 20 ish, top 25 ish, probably. There's just some impeccable resumes above him of guys who have either won multiple titles and or multiple MVPs. So I think he slots in probably as perhaps the third or fourth best power forward of all time, perhaps top 20, 25-ish player.
Kyle, thanks for sharing that with us. Congratulations again on the $100 gift card. Awesome that you were our first winner. Keep watching the show, and we appreciate your support.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good day.
You as well.
This Sunday's NFC Championship was one that I would have liked to see quite a bit closer than it was. The amazing story of Brock Purdy came to an end on Sunday with Brock Purdy unfortunately tearing his UCL. It was a complete tear. There's an estimated 6-month recovery time. Of course, this news coming from the first doctor that he went to see. He is going to get a second opinion on it. But the game kind of completely unraveled without having him back there at quarterback. Josh Johnson couldn't do quite the job that Purdy had done this year. And it just, to be honest, it kind of sucks to see him go out that way. I would have liked to see it much closer. The Eagles and the 49ers, I think, are a lot more evenly matched than the score showed. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, Jordan. And even Josh Johnson getting the concussion there at the end of the first half, it was like a hospital game for the 49ers. Like, nobody could stay healthy. And I mean, the 49ers just kept shooting themselves in the foot, defensive penalties on every single possession for Philadelphia. So, yeah, I agree 100%. They are very evenly matched, but the score just didn't indicate that. I mean, you take away Devontae Smith's catch that ended up being leading to a touchdown, and it's still a 17-point game. So that really didn't matter in the long run. It turned into a blowout that should have been a 3-point game in the final seconds.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, that kind of falls on Kyle Shanahan, because that could have easily been challenged. You saw the Eagles rushing up there. Devontae knew he didn't have it.
Yeah.
So he was rushing up there to get a playoff. So I think
like this, he knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think not throwing the challenge flag there, Jesse, kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. San Francisco was still in it early. Obviously, the scoring drive that the Niners had, Christian McCaffrey was doing Christian McCaffrey things. He was going above and beyond even what he was supposed to do, just being asked to do everything. He was the offense in that game. Because you had the injury to Purdy, who couldn't throw more than 10 yards. You had Josh Johnson, who was playing, you know, what can I say? He's a fourth string quarterback. And then getting the concussion on top of that, it didn't allow Debo to get going. It didn't allow Ayuk to get going. Didn't allow the 49ers to really show their offense. And I think that Not that we deserve better, but I think that, you know, it would have been nice, just as a fan of the game, to see a more close competition. But not to take anything away from the Eagles at all.
Well, yeah, and I think if you're an Eagles fan too, you want to beat a team at their best. I
Yeah.
mean, realistically, you want to beat a team like the 49ers on a 12-game winning streak. You want to beat them at full strength, even if it's Brock Purdy as a third string quarterback who he was playing lights out. You know, you want to beat that team at 100% healthy and at full strength. Yes, Christian McCaffrey was doing his thing, but that's because Brock Purdy, like you said, could not throw the football. Yes, he had 100% completion percentage, but I mean,
4 for 4, I think.
he threw the ball 4 times.
Yeah.
So, you know, you didn't get to see what you wanted to see in an NFC championship.
Right.
You know, a spot in the Super Bowl on the line. It was from the get-go after the Purdy injury, you knew it was Philly's game.
Matt Hasselbeck said that there's a reason that Brock Purdy was picked in the 7th round. He doesn't have a ton of faith in him as a starter going forward. I tend to disagree with that. I think that he showed, if anything, in this game, just how important and how vital he was to this team, hanging in there, not just hanging in there, but thriving during that, 7-8 game stretch that he was in. Do you think that this small sample size proves that he has a future in the NFL as a starter?
First of all, Jordan, I take anything Matt Hasselbeck says with a grain of salt. He said he wanted the ball and he was going to score. He did not score.
Moments before disaster, right?
Yes. Second of all, we saw, and I talked about this on the show way back. He's going to get the job done with the tools he has available, and he's going to be productive. He has starter capability, and I think he showed that in the last 2 months. Showed it in the playoffs, even against good teams. So, you know, if he can come back from this injury, you know, and we saw, I think it was 6 months recovery time. That's right around the start of training camp. So, you know, sit him out for the preseason maybe. But you also got to think too, San Francisco has a lot of decisions to make with 3 potential starting quarterbacks on the same roster.
Kind of reminds me of the situation in Minnesota a few years back where they had Sam Bradford, they had Case Keenum, and they had Teddy Bridgewater on their roster. And they opted to do away with all 3 and go for the veteran in Kirk Cousins. So that is a possibility. We'll see what it means for the 49ers going forward. Let's switch things up now. We're going to go from the NFC Championship game to the AFC Championship game. Coming into this game, Jesse, Joe Burrow was 3-0 versus Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. To go 4-0 would have been nothing short of monumental, in my opinion. To go 4-0 against somebody that people are saying is already the baby goat, the next greatest of all time, somebody who people are saying could pass up Tom Brady to take that mantle from him, would be phenomenal. I just didn't see it happening. I didn't think that he could get so lucky to go 4-0, especially with such a banged-up offensive line. Now, I thought this game could go either way, and a lot of people are saying there's a lot of controversy in this game due to the officiating. I'm of the opinion that the officiating didn't really dictate the final score in this one.
I agree. I think the officiating in this game was just fine. I think it came down to the fact that at the end of the day, 100% a penalty on Cincinnati there, the late hit out of bounds, gets Kansas City into field goal range. They kick a field goal, they win the game. Either way, you get sacked 5 times in a conference championship game, you're going to struggle to score the football and win. All the memes that we see on social media and stuff about how the referees were the MVP, I don't understand. I think this game was actually one of the better officiated games of the season, and it came down to the end of the day. Kansas City got down the field at the end, and they won the game. They got it done, and Cincinnati made too many mistakes.
Yeah, the referees always make bad calls when it's against your team. you know.
Yeah.
I agree. The all the memes I've been seeing, all the people talking to me, and now that people know I have a podcast, they talk to me a lot more about my opinion about certain stuff. A lot of people saying bad officiating, and I'm like, where? I don't see it. I think a lot of these officiating calls, they were good calls, and they didn't dictate the outcome of the game. You know, I think what really dictated the outcome of this game is that Joe Burrow both lived and died by throwing into double coverage deep. One of the best at doing it, absolutely. But you do that over and over again enough, you know, these defenses, they're not scrubs by any means, especially this Kansas City defense. Steve
Yeah.
Spagnuolo had a great game plan coming into this one. Obviously, you think of that fourth down drive where he throws it to Jamar Chase. That was an all-time great throw. That'll be on his career highlight reel, both for Jamar Chase and for Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had 2 picks in this game trying to do that down the field as well. And if you're Joe Burrow, you're confident in yourself, and I get that. And if there's one guy I want doing that late in the game, it's probably Joe Burrow. But you do that against a defense like this, who's very well prepared for you, who's got guys who have the skills to be able to pick you off like that. It just really affected the outcome of this one. And I think if he would have played it maybe just slightly more conservative, Cincinnati would have had a great shot at this one.
Yeah, and I think maybe it wasn't the greatest running threat. You know, Mixon and Pirine, the dual threat wasn't working the way that it had in the regular season, but you still had that going for you a little bit. And he had 4 yards passing in the first quarter, and he still kept trying to force the ball into double coverage, and it just wasn't working. And I think Cincinnati just beat themselves. Not to take away from what Kansas City, like you said, Steve Spagnuolo, excellent game plan, but Cincinnati and Burrow just trying to do too much, I think, and it just cost them.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Kansas City, like Mahomes was limited, so his defense did step way up in this game. This, like the NFC was the Hassan Reddick show, the AFC game. This was the Chris Jones show for sure. Believe it or not, he had not had a postseason sack in his career until this game, and then he gets 2. Chiefs defense coming up with 2 INTs, 5 sacks in the game. The Bengals, they had a banged up offensive line, granted. They weren't as impressive this week as they were last week against Buffalo. I think that took a lot out of them to play such a stellar performance in that game, and then to come into this game just didn't hold up against one of the best D lines in the league.
Yeah, we'll talk about last week.
Hey man, that's as much.
Jordan, straight up, they dominated the Bills' defensive front. The front 7 of Buffalo got no pressure whatsoever on Burrow last week in a extremely cold environment. Again, the following week, Chris Jones and company, Kalen Saunders, they got so much pressure all night long.
I didn't want to bring up the Bills too much, but I do have to just say that in regards to the offensive line. So
yeah,
I apologize. You know, I was rooting for the Bills in that one.
But I mean, it makes sense. It was tough to watch as a Bills fan, seeing what they did to our front 7, just backing us up in the trenches, and then what Kansas City did, pushing them 3 yards off the line every play. It stung a little bit, but it goes to show a backup offensive line is not. They might have one successful night, but they're gonna show their lack of success or lack of potential, I guess, the following week.
Jesse, I was super excited putting the rundown together for this week, because there was a lot going on in the sports world, not just in the NFL. But you look at the National Hockey League, and the Bruins were on a historic pace. And I say were because once I started putting this story together, the Bruins lost 3 games in a row. They're still on a historic pace, but they're not gonna reach the echelon if they keep on this current pace, now that they have 3 extra losses. But still a great story. They are on pace right now to tie the all-time record for wins in a season. They have 38 wins through 50 games. That would tie them with the Detroit Red Wings of the 96 season, and of course, a couple of years ago, the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2019.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at historic paces, they are the fastest team in NHL history to reach 80 points. They did it in 47 games this year, Jordan. I wasn't alive yet. I'm 29 years old. I wasn't alive yet when the 79-80 Flyers did it in 49 games. And my grandparents weren't even alive yet when the Habs did it in 49 games either. And there's only been 6 teams now. The Bruins are now the 6th team in NHL history to achieve the 80-point plateau in 50 games or fewer. And of those other 5 in NHL history, 4 of them won the Stanley Cup. History does side with the Bruins that they will lift Lord Stanley's trophy. Now, as we saw with the Lightning a couple years ago, that can go down in flames real quick. Just ask the Columbus Blue Jackets. Also, a 139-point season, which would be a NHL record as well. But like you said, 3 straight losses kind of dampens that ability. Now, the 76-77 Canadians, who went 68-12, scored 100, or they had 132 points. That is the NHL record now. So for the Bruins to be able to keep this pace up, even with the couple losses in a row, they could still reach that mark. I haven't seen even what the Lightning did in 2019. I've never seen anything. And I've been watching hockey my whole life. I've never seen anything close to this. I'm so jealous of Boston sports fans and their freaking success the last 20 years. But as a Sabres fan, and the fact that the Sabres are right on the cusp of a playoff berth right now, and right there on the edge, it is very exciting to see a team like the Bruins with the ability to potentially have one of the greatest seasons in NHL history.
I'm going to dampen the mood just a little bit right now, because you said a lot of this stuff does work in their favor. I look at it the other way. I see, of course, you alluded to the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple of years ago. Best record of all time, tying the 96 Red Wings. Getting swept in the first round by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Admittedly, I don't follow hockey as well as I should, but I lost my mind when that happened. That's something I'd never seen happen in my life. Red Wings, also that 96 team, did not win the Stanley Cup. You look even outside of hockey at other sports. You have the Golden State Warriors that only lost 9 games, and that they broke the Chicago Bulls record that the people thought would stand for all time, the 72-10 record the Bulls had. They end up not winning the NBA Finals that year. You look at the Los Angeles Dodgers last year, had one of the greatest seasons of all time, top 5. They don't make it out of the first round against the San Diego Padres. They don't even take it to game 5 against the Padres. Padres beat them 3-1. You look at the Seattle Mariners a couple decades ago, who had one of the greatest records of all time. They didn't make it out of the first round. So it's never guaranteed. All these record-setting seasons, I mean, it takes a lot out of you to get there. So I'm not ready to crown Boston champions yet, but yeah, I'm absolutely very
not.
the
Absolutely
fans.
not.
The fans should still be very excited. Yeah, no, there's still a lot of great hockey left to be played. Boston's next game is against a red-hot Toronto Maple Leafs team in Toronto. So it doesn't get much easier after this, but luckily that is their last game before the All-Star break, so they may have some time to regroup.
When they get healthy, health is going to be the key, obviously, in any team making a run for being in contention in the East. But here's the thing. The Bucks are still the team to beat, and they're going to be the team to beat. And I don't think there's anybody in the East besides maybe Chicago that can hang with them in a 7-game series, especially a team like the Nets that are transitioning from a big-time trade to try to get all of these big pieces to mesh together well. So I see them contending maybe next year, but just not this year.
Okay. Granted, this isn't the version of the Nets that we thought we were going to get. However, this team is just 8 games back of first place in the weaker of the two conferences. This Nets team last year was the favorite to win it all, and against those Bucks that beat them, and the Bucks that you say are better than these Nets, if KD was an inch back to make his shot, it would have been a 3 instead of a 2 against the Bucks last year, and this team would be the defending champs right now, and we'd be having a different conversation. They can catch fire in a hurry, and I fully expect them to do that. That video took place almost a year ago already. Can you believe that, guys?
It's crazy. It's crazy to see where we're coming from. You know, I barely even remember that video. I don't even know what I was talking about, to be honest.
well, we had 2 different projects. That was my final project, and then I was a guest on yours, and I don't remember what I talked about on yours. But anyways, guys, welcome in Mr. Big Time over here, Mr. Austin Parr, graduate with me and Jesse, longtime friend. Austin, good to have you on the show today. Finally, after 8 episodes, we get you on.
Yeah, you know, I've been waiting for my time. Once you guys started this whole thing, I was checking my watch and my phone, waiting for my phone call. But here we are. Just want to say thank you so much, of course. This is awesome what you guys are doing. And, you know, couldn't be more grateful to be a part of this whole podcast. Thank you.
I'm going to let the audience know right now. You were razzing me a little bit when I finally asked you to be on. You said, man, about time.
I mean, I've been ready, you know, I'm ready to go. Put me in, coach.
I try to get guests on when there's something in particular that pertains to them. Like Jackson was on when we were reviewing the 2022 year in sports. And obviously the Houston Astros were a big part of that, you know, E with the Jaguars. And now finally something that pertains to you today. But before we get into that, why don't we talk about how life's been treating you after graduation? You were the first one of us to get a job in the industry. I mean, E kind of had his own thing going on before graduation, but why don't you talk about what you've been up to after graduation?
Well, at graduation is kind of where it started. So we met Richard Tiemann, who was at graduation, graduated a couple years prior to us. He was actually the first class in the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. Couldn't graduate because of COVID. Met him. He happened to be standing right behind me. He was the last one to go. And I just had a lot of conversations with him, and he was ranting and raving about this whole new job in Montana. And I was like, okay, well, I'm graduating. If you need somebody, call me. A couple weeks later, he gave my resume recommendation to Jeff Haidt, the recruiter for ABC Fox Montana. Long story short, had a couple interviews. It was so fast. Everything happened so quickly, and it was just kind of like the right fit. I needed to, if I didn't move out of California, I probably would have still been working in the restaurant industry. Never thought I'd be in the city of Montana, or the state of Montana, excuse me. But I accepted the job. And 2 weeks later, August 1st, I was in Helena, Montana, Southern California boy. Not many people like the fact that I'm from Southern California, so I don't tell them that often, but I'm in the state capital. I mean, this is my office. It's been pretty crazy. I mean, the growth that I've had from when I got here and how nervous I was to even start this job to where we're at now is tenfold. I mean, I'm in this office. It's called the News Cave. It's really, really tiny. I'm the only person here, only sports reporter. I don't work in a studio or anything like that. I'm far away from where our actual shows are produced, but pretty cool. I work in the state capitol building. Helena is the state capital for Montana, and right now it's session for like politics and things like that. I'm not a political guy. Keep me with the sports.
I'm not from Southern California, but you know, I wasn't too far away from Thousand Oaks, just a couple hours drive. I used to be in bands. I used to go on tours to other states, and believe me, the hate for California is very real. Everywhere you go. But I digress.
I mean, the biggest thing I tell people is, look, I'm not your stereotypical Californian. I'm not like a, you know, diehard Democrat.
We all say that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the truth, though. And I tell them, I'm like, look, I'm out here to do sports. That's what I'm here for. So judge me on that, you know, and then the conversation kind of goes from there. So,
Austin, I did want to talk to you a little bit about some things that I know you had talked to me about as far as your interests go. Let's start with LeBron James. He is currently chasing the scoring crown. He is 117 points behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the all-time scoring record. How do you feel as a Lakers fan going into this with LeBron almost certainly going to pass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the next week or so.
No, it's not almost certainly. I mean, it's definitely going to happen. But what else can you say? You know, a lot of big time athletes, especially in the NBA, towards their latter portion of their career, are not putting up the numbers that LeBron is. They're not taking care of themselves like LeBron's taking care of his body. And you have to give him credit. I mean, there's two ways you can go. And I think he deserves it 100%. I mean, he's averaging close to 30 points a game in you know, we're talking what, year 18 now or whatever. I can't remember what season he's in now. It feels like he's been in the league forever, but
yeah.
He's arguably going to go down as one of the greatest players of all time. And he deserves it now that he's going to be a Laker and breaking Kareem's record. I love it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him being a Laker and breaking that record. But the other part of it is like, what are the Lakers doing? You know, like they're almost wasting his later years of his career. He's putting up some of the best numbers, MVP like numbers when he plays and when he's healthy, obviously. And we all know he doesn't necessarily always play the greatest defense on the planet. But I mean, look what he's doing with the scoring and with the offensive stuff on the offensive side of the ball. You have to give it to him. I mean, he's one of the oldest players in the NBA and still one of the top 5 best players in the NBA.
I think it might be a little bit of a stretch to call him an MVP this year, but I mean, you never know. The playing is so even right now. There's so many players that are in that conversation at the moment. You never know. He might be a dark horse candidate this year, certainly with the way he's been putting up numbers, just scoring these 30, 40, 50-point games even throughout the year. And like you said, what is he, 37, 38, 39, something like that? It's insane that he's doing this kind of work at this age.
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be the MVP. I'm just saying MVP-like numbers. That's
sure.
what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, because I think Luka might have something to say about that. But anyways, so a sore left ankle kept him out against the Nets on Monday. I should mention we shoot these on Tuesdays. This will come out Wednesday. So if he plays tonight against the Knicks, I'm sure that 117 points is going to shrink to possibly double digits.
For him to break the scoring record, a record that's been standing and for a lot of people thought was probably never going to be broken. I mean, you have to give him the credit that he deserves. And I think it's going to be accepted well. I mean, maybe some of the older heads might not appreciate LeBron's game, or, you know, they always compare eras of basketball and whether he's the greatest with Michael Jordan and yada, yada, yada. But for this era of basketball, he's 100% the best player we've seen step on the court.
And this is almost an era where 1 through 5 don't matter as much. But I'm just saying, LeBron can play anywhere and do anything.
He also, I mean, let's talk about how the opponents that he's faced, right? You can go back to, this is like the main argument that a lot of people like to say that argue for LeBron is go look at the opponents that Michael Jordan was facing all the time and in his road to the finals versus LeBron James playing the likes of, you know, Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and that whole big time Warriors team. And it's just different.
To that point as well, he played 6 different finals against 2 of the greatest dynasties of all time. In the early 2010s, he played against Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Kawhi Leonard, the Spurs teams. And then obviously when he went back to the Cavs, every year he was there going up against the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors dynasty, possibly the greatest dynasty to ever exist. Let's talk about this Lakers-Celtics debacle from the other day. I know Jesse wanted to get into this a little bit as well. Jesse, before I get started, was that the greatest tech of all time on Pat Beverly?
Honestly, one of the craziest moments. And you guys know I don't watch the NBA very much, but
Right.
easily one of my favorite moments in the NBA I've ever seen. Patrick Beverly is now my favorite player in the NBA. What possesses someone to bring a camera onto the court just to show a referee a picture of a foul? It is awesome. It was awesome. My favorite technical foul ever, bar none. I don't care what anyone says.
It was an egregious missed call. I'll give you that, but it happens.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that reaction, unwarranted, but at the same time, just so damn funny. And it brought a moment of joy in what is otherwise just a really awkward and kind of ridiculous situation on the court. One thing I didn't like about that, the NBA referees, they do have a Twitter handle, and they posted on Twitter that night. They said, and I quote, "Like everyone else, referees make mistakes. We made one at the end of last night's game, and that is gut-wrenching for us. This play will weigh heavily and cause sleepless nights as we strive to be the best referees we can be." In my opinion, I think they should have just not said anything about the endless nights of no sleep. It will weigh heavily on us. We don't care. Like, admit you missed the call and move on.
Yeah, it kind of seems tone deaf, to be honest. You don't feel like they really accept responsibility for it. Obviously, in the moment, not a good call. Obviously, a blown call. The Lakers ended up losing the game eventually in overtime, which kind of, I think, adds to the egregiousness to it, I think. But it just seems like a very tone deaf comment to make.
Let's talk live golf. Because when I grew up, I liked to see different sports that had drama in them. A lot of drama in football, tons of drama in basketball, even drama in baseball. There hasn't been a lot of drama in golf that I've known in my lifetime until now. There is a ton of drama in golf. Let's talk about this Live PGA rivalry. Liv just got a new TV deal with the CW. What are your thoughts on that?
It's very interesting, right? There's a lot of different ways we can go with this one. Is it a start for them? Yeah, of course. They're trying to, make their brand recognizable, and arguably they didn't have, a lot of audience last year, but is the CW going to help them? I'm not sure. They spent like $784 million last year just to get that tour going. And obviously this is going to take some years if they're going to try to make an actual brand and make a rival tour to the PGA Tour, because I don't think we can quite say that yet. Yes, they took a lot of the golfers from the PGA Tour, but are they a rival currently? I'm not sure. And plus with, the live golfers now being able to compete in majors like the Masters and things like that, who's not going to say that more PGA Tour golfers are going to make that jump, right? But the biggest thing with the CW, it is definitely a start, 100%. The biggest argument is YouTube and Facebook were their biggest platforms last year, which aided to the younger generation, which is where golf has been going. And especially with the COVID boom of golf, everybody wants to play golf now, right? And it's more eye appealing to the younger generation. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in high school, golf wasn't cool. All the kids that were on the golf team were not cool kids. Now that's a different story. Now people know that they can be professional golfers, and that is the cool thing to do. Well, signing with the CW, you're kind of aiding more to that older generation audience and taking it away from your younger generation audience. So is that going to be beneficial to them? I'm not really sure. Is it a start? Yes, it's a start. And are they going to use this as a platform to maybe in a couple of years say, hey, look, we're gaining traction and try to attract the other networks? Possibly, but it's a start. Let's go with that.
I think one thing that's really fueling this, I guess you can call it a rivalry at this point. I mean, regardless of Liv not being in quite the echelon of the PGA, obviously, but one thing that's kind of fueling this feud is the beef between Rory McIlroy and Patrick Reed. Can you fill us in on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just kind of go back to December. Patrick Reed, his lawyers subpoenaed Rory McIlroy's lawyers over this feud of PGA live golfers being able to compete in certain majors, things like that, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of finer details, but the point is, like, he got lawyers involved, right? And this is a classic Patrick Reed move. The guy's always in controversy with whether he's, not cheating, but, pushing the rules platform as he just did in the DP World Tour with Rory McIlroy in this past tournament last week, but we'll get to that. But him going up to Rory McIlroy's either coach or caddy, I can't remember which one it was, at the range, saying hi, happy new year, blah, blah, hope all is well. And then expecting the same response back from Rory when he subpoenaed his lawyers for a court case. Like, what is he thinking? Like, honestly, he really, like, I wouldn't say hi to the guy. And then he gets all pissy and he gets mad. And as he's walking away, he has a tee in his pocket that says, whatever, 4 aces or whatever team he's on. And he just flicks it at him. Like, Patrick Reed is super petty. This is why America doesn't like him. And he's one of the most hated golfers on whatever tour that he's playing on. I mean, look at where he was 5-6 years ago, sponsored by Nike, big time on the PGA Tour, had all these controversies, and the dude has literally fell off the planet. Now, no disrespect to, Patrick Reed himself, but like, he just keeps putting himself in these situations where people just continually dislike him.
I'm just going to slightly disagree with you on that. I feel like the fact that Patrick Reed is kind of taking this villainous approach, almost like the Miz. Patrick Reed is kind of making himself, being the fact that he's in LIV, it's making this rivalry even better. Because you see a guy like Rory McIlroy, who's super respected throughout professional golf and throughout the world as a athlete. And then you have basically the Wario to his Mario in Patrick Reed, essentially. I thought both of their press conferences that they did later on that day were kind of interesting as well, adding fuel to the fire. Rory, when he was asked, can you see yourself mending the bridges with Patrick? Just no response, just an emphatic head shake on that one. And then Patrick Reed's quote later on when he I believe talked to Golf Digest, he said, if you're going to act like an immature little child, then you might as well be treated like one. The irony in that being that Patrick Reed was acting like an immature child. I'm invested now. I'm interested. I'm going to be paying a lot more attention to the sport going forward. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes it more fun and watchable than it's like, golf has always been the super classy and not like it's very serious sport, right? It's, dressed to the nines and blah, blah, blah. Like LIV golf, they're out there wearing shorts, wearing whatever they want to, very casual. When they win on the 18th green, they're popping champagne bottles and smoking cigars and blah, blah, like that stuff resonates with the younger audience and makes it more of a like, wow, I want to do that, or I want to watch more of this, or more of an entertainment factor. And I think that's what LIV is trying to do. So it's very interesting over the next couple of years to see what they do with the CW. But it's awesome. Like I said, I mean, golf is a great sport, and I think both of you should watch it more.
Austin, I watched the WM championship last year.
Yep.
I forgot who it was who hit the hole in one.
There was 2 of them.
Well, I saw the first one. I didn't see the second one, but just to see golf when I was growing up, when we were growing up, and then to see that happen that weekend, I was like, that's not golf. That's not what I know as golf, or like just the celebration of it and the party atmosphere is not what I know of as golf. And you can definitely see the landscape and the way LIV has set the landscape to change. It is allowing the younger generation to try to change the landscape of it, but you can definitely see the older generation and the crowd of this isn't or that isn't golf, trying to draw the pushback and the way that they want it to mainstay the dress to the nines, the country club style legitimacies of the game, and they don't want that party atmosphere to draw into this 21st century style game. And I think the way LIV is drawing it up, it has created a real excitement. And honestly, we've talked about this, you and I'm not a fan of golf, but I'm a fan of this and the way that they are doing it.
Once again, we're signing off from 3 different time zones. Austin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Can't wait to have you back, man. It was a real privilege getting to talk to you again and getting your insight on everything today.
Hey, man, like I said, been waiting a long time. Not too long, but thank you so much again for having me. Love talking with you guys. Miss you guys. Looking forward to collaborating in the future. You guys are doing a great thing. I watch every episode. I'm a supporter. So anything you need from me, just give me a call, man.
Really appreciate that, man. Thank you. Hey, next time you're down in Thousand Oaks, I'll make the trip down. I'll get you a beer.
March? Yeah, I'll text you the actual dates.
Let me know, because I'm on vacation in March. So hopefully I'll be in the area. But yeah, just let me know. All right, guys. From Oklahoma, Montana, California, Jordan here, Austin there, Jesse there. Peace out, guys. We'll see you next week.
See ya.